There are a lot of similarities between animating cameras in After Effects and animating cameras in Cinema 4D, and we'll definitely uncover a lot of those similarities as we go through the rest of this video. So to get started, let's select our cameras.c4d file in our project panel and press Command-E or Control-E on Windows to edit the original file. If we look in the timeline of Cinema 4D, we can click and drag through and notice that we already have some animation in the scene. Our 3D logo has been animated. So now I just want to add a camera move rotating around the logo. If you go to the creation tools in the upper right corner, notice we have the light bulb, and just to the left is the camera. If you click and hold, there are 3 different kinds of cameras. We'll focus on the first 2. To draw a parallel to After Effects, the first camera is the same as a single node camera, and a target camera is like a 2-node camera. Let's go ahead and choose the target camera. Now, once you add a target camera to the scene, you're still not looking through the view of that camera. If I orbit around in my scene here, you'll notice that I see this box and a couple of lines. So let me zoom out, and here you can clearly see my camera. Now, I could easily reposition the camera in the scene by clicking on the different control handles and moving it around. Notice it's always going to be pointed at the origin because that's where my camera target is set up. If we select the camera target, I can click on that and drag it to different places, and then of course that changes what the camera is looking at. So let's make sure we position the camera target towards the middle of our logo. Now, in order to be able to see what the camera is seeing, we need to activate the camera. If you go up in your Objects panel, right next to this target, to the left, there is a little square. Go ahead and click on that, and that'll activate the view of this camera. Now, the easiest way I find for moving cameras around in Cinema is to just turn on automatic keyframing and then start flying around the scene. To show you what I mean, let's select the camera layer by clicking it in the top of the Objects panel. Then make sure you're on the Coordinates channel. In here, you can see the XYZ values of the position. So if we go up to our navigation tools in the upper right corner of our viewer, we can zoom out and zoom in and reposition ourselves around the scene, and notice all of this information has been updating. So I want to do a relatively easy move. So let's start in the lower corner and zoomed in on our logo. There we go. In order to create animation, we can turn on our automatic keyframing. Now, before I turn that on, I want to just move my current time indicator back to the start frame. Now we can turn on automatic keyframing by clicking this button with the 2 arrows that kind of travel around the outside. Notice the second automatic keyframing is enabled, we have a red line around our viewer. Also, the labels for the parameter values have changed to yellow. Let's reposition our camera a little bit in the scene just by zooming out and then clicking on the pan around tool. This way I've assured that I've created some keyframes for my first frame. Now, if we move the current time indicator down the timeline here, let's move it to around frame 130. Now we can reposition our camera, and once we reposition the camera, we've then created an animation with 2 keyframes. You can see those keyframes in the timeline. They're very tiny, but it's these little white check marks. Now, before we preview the animation, I'm going to make sure to turn off automatic keyframing so I don't accidentally add any more keyframes. Let's move the playhead back to the start, and then click the play button to preview our animation. So this is exactly what I was looking for. I'm pretty much done with the animation phase of cameras. Let's just stop playback here for a second. There are some other similarities with After Effects cameras. Make sure you have the camera selected in the top of your object panel, and then go down to the Objects channel. In the Objects section, here if I make this panel a little larger, you'll notice I have an option for the focal length, and there's a preset. If I click on this pull down, I have a lot of similar presets to what we had inside of After Effects. Now, obviously, if I wanted to choose a different camera, I should have chosen this before we started our animation, but I wanted you to see exactly where the similarities lied with the cameras. Notice at the bottom, we even have options to set the focus distance for the camera. Now, there's one more channel in the cameras that we should explore, and that's the target. When you click on the target, notice there's a target object specified, and that's the camera target 1. If we go up to our object panel, you can see that we have a null object with that name. Now, when we click on the camera, just to activate the camera options again, I could change this target to look at anything in the scene. Now, since I have one thing in the scene, I'll go ahead and just click and drag on that logo and bring it down into this target object area. The second I let go, the scene will reframe based on this one object. Now, obviously, I don't necessarily want to do that, but I wanted you to see that the camera target with a two-node camera can be changed to any object in the scene. Now, I'll just press Command-Z on my Mac to undo that latest command. Now, to bring the camera move and the model and everything back into After Effects, all we have to do is save our project. And of course, in the After Effects side, there are some other little things we can do to extract information from the Cinema project. But we're going to do that a little bit later in the chapter.